Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 to order. We first have our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that the city of Kenmore is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Soxuatl, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Commissioners, I would like to amend, with your consent, amend the agenda under the business meeting and insert a new item 1, which is commission action on completed public hearing elements. Is there an objection? Hearing none, it's so ordered. I would like to explain to those who are on our virtual land in the cloud, as well as those who are here tonight, that what you see here is an implementation of our new rule that says that public hearings will be at the top of our agenda to ensure that the public is heard before we get to action items or other things like the public comments. I would like to reiterate that items, when you speak to the public hearing, it has to be on the item that that particular public hearing is related to. We have a brand new record as far as I have been here. I don't know if Mike, if this 5 hearings in a night is a record.
This is a new world's record. I think it goes beyond the city of Kenmore.
Okay, so there we go.
Aspirational.
So please, if you have comments, keep them to the public hearing. And if you want the same comment for 2 items, you're going to have to come up again and just, you can even just state, please put my previous comments on this element too. That would, we could survive on that, I believe. So that's important. And so we're going to go right down 1 through 5 on the public hearing agenda. One second, please. We welcome our community members to the Planning Commission's public hearing. In this forum, the Planning Commission does not engage or dialogue with the public. The primary role of the Planning Commission is to listen. This public hearing tonight will be on the natural environment element of the comprehensive plan. Please see that agenda packet for details. Please keep your comments limited to this topic for the hearing. We will hear from our on-site guests first, followed by our virtual guests. If you are here in the chambers, please be sure to sign in. If you're online, the clerk We'll call your name when it is your turn, and she would know that you've applied to speak. You must address your comments to the chair and the city planning commissioners. The clerk will acknowledge your request and call your name when it's your turn. Your time will start when we can hear you. Due to time constraints and provide fair time to all community members, we must limit each speaker to 3 minutes. We will not split your time with others or reset your time. Screen sharing is not allowed. In all cases, please state your name and city of residence for the record. You can submit materials to the Planning Commission and via the clerk in advance. This meeting is being recorded. We appreciate your taking the time to express your comments. I want to again say that if you have something to say about this particular element as we go through them, you need to say them during the public hearing. We will not hear these items or receive comment on them during public comments, since the hearing will be completed. So who do we have? Do we have anyone present?
We need to go through each hearing. We have no, so we're starting with
Number one.
number one. So
environment.
there's no public comment and no in-person comment for number one.
Hearing
Public
no-
testimony, excuse me.
Hearing that there is no public comment for this hearing, the hearing is hereby closed. On to hearing number 2. So I will just abbreviate my statement. This public hearing is on the surface water element of the comprehensive plan, and please see the agenda packet for details. As I said, limit to this topic for this hearing right now. All other instructions to the public are the same as the last hearing that we just did, since there's nobody new online, correct?
There are no comments for the surface water, this surface water one.
Nothing. Oh, she signed in.
Nancy, I have you signed up for the table, the amendment to it. Yeah, there's a general surface water, and then there's a surface water table. And it's okay. If you want to speak to this one, we can just move. Okay,
They go.
then that is fine. We have Nancy Hansen in the audience. You can go up to the lectern. Thank you.
Would you call her name, please?
Sorry?
Would you please call her name?
Oh, Nancy Hansen has a public
Nancy
testimony.
Hansen. I live at 7219 Northeast 158th Street in Kenmore. And
you.
this is just a recommendation to hopefully add a little section in the surface water element. And it's from Kirkland, and it was in their the surface water master plan that they adopted in 23, I think it was, or maybe it was last year. But anyway, the section is called Surface Water Assets, and it's just a short little section with lots of pictures and maps, and it tells, the 3 sections are wetlands, streams and lakes, and then that was one, and then parks, open space, and then the stormwater infrastructure was the 3rd section. And they give explanations in this section about how how all 3 interrelate, and it's very simple, and lots of, the pictures are interesting, and the maps are really nice, very simple maps, easy to look at and understand what's going on. So I thought it was a really good effort to reach public about conservation and all of these things, just based on my age and what we used to think of wetlands. You know, it was junk property way back, and now we've realized that we need to be more careful. And I think this is a really good effort at helping the conservation efforts in Kenmore. And I think a lot of people would realize that that's why they like Kenmore. You know, it's the rugged area, all of the steep slopes and the water running through. It's really an interesting place. And I think, you know, they don't really realize that, but people say they like it here. And it seems like it's not developed like fancy places and whatever, but there's something great about Kenmore. And I kind of conclude that all these people out walking where I live, there's just a lot of people who walk in Kenmore that I know in my neighborhood anyway, in the moorlands. And anyway, that's what I think about, you know, the feeling here. And then on the maps, they've added slopes, the steep slopes, and they fit with all the critical areas. And if you can just think of all the steep slopes in Kenmore, you know, I sat down and I could name 7 significant, interesting steep slopes, you know, that the kids they go there for their sledding because they're the steepest they can find and that kind of thing. And then I won't go on anymore, but I was going to say that Kirkland has even mapped their or tallied their miles of open streams and their 420 acres of wetlands. And I was thinking, gosh, you know, they
Thank you,
really
Nancy.
care. Well, I'm
Sorry.
darn. Yeah. Anyway, I'll continue with the council on this, but thank you.
Todd, are you familiar with what she was talking about with regard to Kirkland?
I'm not familiar with Kirkland specifically, but some of the comments that Nancy provided, some of those items are addressed in the natural environment element, specifically steep slopes and things like that in the map. So we do address those. So those are great comments and we appreciate those. I just wanted to make note that we do, but it's in the previous element that the hearing was held. So, but nonetheless, great comments.
Thank you very much. Is there, Madam Clerk, is there any further folks that want to speak?
No, there are no more comments. Thank you.
Okay, then the hearing number 2 is closed. Okay, public hearing number 3.
Nancy, I just want to verify you don't want to speak on the other table. Okay, perfect. Then there are no public testimony on the number 3 public hearing.
So tonight, public hearing number 3 is on the table CF-B, surface water facilities capital improvement. And it is a table that is attached to the surface water element. Please see the agenda packet for details. And the rest of my comments are the same as the first hearing. And there are no new people on it's still 4. So seeing that there is no one to testify, I declare the public hearing closed. Okay, we're averaging 5 a minute. I mean, 5 a hearing. Okay, we can do better than that. Oh, is that right? Okay, public hearing number 4. This public hearing is on the code amendments for 18.20 Kenmore Municipal Code, which is entitled Technical Terms and Land Use Definitions. and these are amendments. And I would ask if do you have anything to mention to us?
No,
about this?
Planning Commission has reviewed these. These are related specifically, this one and the following hearing. The amendments to 1855 as well are related specifically to natural environment, critical areas. As I mentioned before, we're not doing a full-scale critical areas update. That's not required at this time. So we're just doing some small amendments that are necessary to match up with some of the items that we adopted in the natural environment element. And that's really all staff has to say.
I know that this is a little out of order and odd, but since I just want to make sure that if there's any commissioner that has any issue with these amendments, that you have a chance to speak up now before the public hearing. Okay, seeing none, we will move forward. So the public hearing is on the amendments to Chapter 1820 Kenmore Municipal Code. Madam Clerk, is there anyone here for this hearing?
There is not.
Okay. I hereby declare hearing number 4 on 18.20 Kenmore Code amendments closed. Right. Next item, last public hearing. This public hearing is on code amendments to Chapter 18.55 Kenmore Municipal Code relating to critical areas. Please see the agenda packet for details. The rest of my comments are the same as read for public hearing number 1. If anyone has a question, just raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and, Madam Clerk, is there any one here?
No comments on this. No
Okay.
testimony.
Seeing that there is no comments, there are no comments for this, the amendments to Chapter 18.55 Kenmore Municipal Code, the public hearing is adjourned. Okay, now that is 19 minutes. Actually less than that. I'd say 15, wouldn't you?
Close enough.
Okay. I don't think the city council could match that. I dare them. Let's put that on the record. Okay, in fact, I'll put that in my entry notes. I think we even surprised you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone signed up for public comments?
Yes, Nancy Hansen is signed up for public comment.
Okay, and I'm going to read the intro. Again, we welcome you to our commission meeting. We do not engage or dialogue with the public, and most of our role is to listen. We will hear from our on-site guests first, followed by our virtual guests, which I understand there are none. If you're present, please sign in. If you are, there's nobody online, you must address the comments to the chair and the planning commissioners. Your time will start where we confirm we do hear you clearly. Due to time constraints and fair time for all community members, we must limit the speaker to 3 minutes and we will not split your time or reset your time. Please do not comment on any of the 5 items that we just had public hearing on. This is not an appropriate time and not part of the public hearing record. So please state your name and city of residence for the record. In this case, if you submit materials to the clerk, they will be provided to us at a later time. This meeting is being recorded, and we appreciate you taking the time to express your perspective. Madam Clerk?
Nancy, you can go to the. No problem. Thank you.
There's nothing burning on your mind that you want to tell us tonight, huh? That you haven't told us. But remember, this has nothing to do with the public hearings. Okay?
Nancy Hanson again, and I would like to see you look over what I sent into you all in an email and maybe talk it over and see if you want to adopt this. And I was thinking it would go between where you've got the Clean Water Act section and water resource section defining RIA 8. So between those, it would be perfect right in there to give, yeah.
Issues in public
Yeah.
hearings. Okay, thank
And
you.
I hope you have a chance to look at it. I was so excited, and to see the word asset used with critical areas. It was wonderful. So
Thank you.
thanks.
That will not be recorded for, I mean, not recorded, but transcribed into the public hearing. Okay, no. Right, seeing that there are no other individuals that wish to have public comment, that part of the agenda is done. Okay. The consent agenda. Is there any objections to approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved by unanimous agreement. All right, so I would like to, I did a little homework on this. So we're going to now deal with the stuff that we have to get done for the city council meeting next week, and I have a list. Now, if you looked at the city council agenda, you will see under business agenda item A laundry list of items. So first we're going to go through and pass if we want to, or vote on the items that are pending. Okay, so we have 5 pending things. I bet you don't know what 5 of them are. Anyway, so is there any further discussion from any commissioner on the natural environment element? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion, you just say so moved, that this element is complete from the Planning Commission and is referred as a recommendation to the City Council.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second, essentially to move this to the City Council. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there, okay. Is there anyone going to vote no? Okay. Then, unless there's an objection, I will declare this motion adopted by unanimous consent. Okay, surface water element is the next item on the list. Is any discussion? It's already been, the land use element's been passed by us.
Okay.
Land use element. What did I miss something here? I had community design element, downtown element.
Land is coming up later in the evening.
Well, I'm using this from the
Yeah.
city council.
Oh,
Oh, the two from
There's no
last
land-
meeting, downtown and community design at your last meeting, you already made recommendations on those. So we're just requesting recommendations on the ones you just held this evening,
Right.
hearings.
But the land use element is not up.
No,
Okay.
not land use, not housing.
Not for next week. Okay. Whew. I worked on this to get it done, you know?
It is on the agenda that I'm looking at, so. we probably need
Yes,
some kind of
it
correction.
is, right, but we're going to go through the things we gotta send off to make Todd happy.
Always want to do that. Yeah.
We always want to make our main man happy. Okay, is there an issue? Are we good? Okay. Okay, the clerk has given me permission to move on. So is there, I believe Commissioner Dorian raised his hand about wanting to comment on the current item, which is the surface water element.
Point of information. So we also have a surface water master plan. Is that correct? As well as the element.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Do you know a surface water assets included in the surface water master plan?
That I don't know. I'd have to refer to Director Sawyer, who will be at the city council meeting.
So we could raise this back, or public rather than us, because we would be done, but public could re-raise this with the council if it proves not to be in the master plan, or even if it is in the master plan, we also want it in the element. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Or someone can make a comment
Mhm.
at our presentation too. So that's, quick comment. I'm suggesting 2-minute comments at the most. Because I think they're also doing budget items or something that night. Their night's worse than ours. So is any further comment on the surface water element? Commissioner Olson.
Another point of information. Why is the surface water facilities and surface water elements separated? Is that just to keep them from getting too lengthy? I hadn't really considered that, but I'm wondering.
That's another one that I don't have the answer to, unfortunately, because I didn't work on the element. That would be something that could certainly be addressed by Director Sawyer. Again, he'll be a president at the city council meeting.
So would you summarize, Todd, what you understand Mr. Sawyer is being asked to speak to?
Yeah, so in terms of there's a surface water management plan, and then the element which you've reviewed is the element including the policies that are related to the comprehensive plan itself. So just like there's a climate action plan or a downtown plan or a separate plan aside from the comprehensive plan element, hopefully that clarifies the relationship to those. So there's in association to the element, there's separate kind of management plans of those, and there's a number of things addressed in that in more specificity, whereas the surface water element is one of those elements that is required, but it's more targeted for just general summarization and policies. So hopefully that provides some context without fully understanding Mr. Sawyer would know, the exact reasoning, but yeah.
Another, if I may add, the comprehensive plan is adopted by ordinance. And that makes it a law with how it's stated in the city. And it supersedes plans from the standpoint, it gives direction of policy that the city council has adopted for the staff and administration to give some guidance and to give the public some good information on where the council wants to go in the big picture for the city. And that's one reason why these things are very important, because we only do individual elements like once every 5 years. About
If that, it just depends. Yeah, I mean, we're required by state law to update the comprehensive plan once every 10 years, but that does not mean that we don't have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to do it once per year if we so choose, but generally speaking, most elements aren't addressed for, it used to be every 8 years. Now it's been pushed out to 10 years. So
as you can see, it's a lot of work. And I, as chair, really appreciate each one of you guys that the detail that you do in the weeds for the plan, because from a elected's perspective on the city council, the manager and his staff, if we can get it, down right and in clarity, it makes a difference. I think that Saad would say if they would just write the RCWs that way, it would be better, right? Okay, so does that make sense to everyone? This is what we're doing here is the last shot we do at this, and from now on, it will be at the city council. Okay, so we're back to one of the other things we do is we're required to, or it's up to the city, but the council likes us to do amendments to the code as it relates to the comprehensive plan. Did I say that right?
Yes, and also there's Department of Commerce also has a checklist that we're required to address any items that are part of the comprehensive plan cycle. So that's the other reasoning behind, some of the amendments that we brought forward to the Planning Commission. So.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, are we on technical terms now?
No, we haven't passed surface water yet. We need a motion.
Oh, the capital.
I would move that we pass both
Okay,
this.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We need to pass the
okay.
surface
Oh, we
water
were
to
talking about
the
that.
council.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, we're going to use the same motion we did prior. Is that okay, clerk? Okay, do we have a motion, folks? Someone to move that?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we're done with this and we're going to send it off to the city council, and that's in loose terms. Is there any discussion? Discussion is closed. To simplify matters, is anyone going to vote no? Seeing no one wanting to object, without objection, the surface water element is hereby adopted, or complete. Yes. Okay, so the next is anyone want to talk about the facility capital table? Commissioner Olson, I see those eyes working.
Just to be clear, my understanding of that table, let me pull it open so I can make sure I'm.
You need to speak into your thing, otherwise we can't hear you.
That's just discussing surface water facilities improvements. Specifically, it's not discussing existing facilities, is my understanding, or other parts of the facilities. I believe it's literally just the table, right? From what I saw in the document.
Yeah, this is the table lives, and that's my colloquial term, lives in the capital facilities element, thereby it's being amended as part of that element, just as you would have done for similar to like the transportation element when you saw that earlier this year. It's a similar circumstance. So when the transportation element was adopted, you also had a table that lived in the capital facilities element, and it's the same principle here. So
perfect.
And if I'm correct, that the city council, when they do their budget, is when they start basically picking the items off the list to be done in global.
Yes and no. I mean, this one is one that's adopted as part of the staff's work plan for the element. So I don't know. They're not gonna for the consideration that they're not gonna pick and choose ones out of this, if that's what you're asking, but these will be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan in the budget, but they won't prioritize or do any of that.
Right. And once in a while, there's a grant or specific federal or state money that comes down that the staff knows about it and will tell the city council about, right?
To help support finishing that list of body of work.
Right, okay. Okay, so looking for the same motion, clerk, is there someone to move that, please?
So moved.
There's a second.
Seconded.
Is there any objection to a unanimous vote?
Commissioner Dorian, were you the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any objections? Hearing none, the table CF-B of the surface water facilities capital improvements has been completed by the Planning Commission and is referred to the City Council. Now we're to the amendments to Chapter 1820, technical terms and land use definitions. Is there any comments from commissioners on these? Hearing none, then the same language for this motion as in number 1, please, clerk. And is there someone that will move that?
So moved.
Second? It's been seconded. And is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objections to the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. And our amendments to Chapter 1820 Kenmore Municipal Code hereby transmitted to the City Council for action. We're going to set a record tonight. All right. Next on the agenda are the amendments to chapter 18.55 Kenmore Municipal Code, critical areas. Is there any comments from the commissioners on that? Hearing none, it'll be the same motion as before. Madam Clerk, is there a someone to move the motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, am I going to see any objections? In other words, no votes? Okay. Without objection, the amendments to chapter 18.55 Kenmore Municipal Code are hereby completed by the Planning Commission and transmitted to the City Council for action. Okay, so I just want you all to know that was 35 minutes. And Derek's place is closed at 8. 9, okay. All right, so with regard to the items that have to be done tonight, are you happy? Our esteemed staff.
Yeah,
Director.
yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Well done.
All right, so now we're going to go to the housing element and the draft housing element.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair, Commission. Good evening. As you recall, last meeting, we started discussion regarding the housing element and the land use element, specifically regarding the text portion of the element. So we didn't dive into the policies, which is what I'd like to reserve most of the meeting tonight to have an opportunity to gain feedback from those. I just wanted to make a few introductory comments and then see if you had any additional feedback on those. One thing to note in the drafts that you received, so I've highlighted in blue revised sections. This would be regarding your comments that we received, and those have been included in the packet as well under the housing element and land use comments. There were a few of them and we addressed those. And in addition, we meaning Debbie and myself and Tammy Cork, a Housing and Human Services Manager, have been working with King County Affordable Housing Committee, and they had a number of comments which we've since included and addressed, and you can see some of those in either the text or the policy sections. And so we do have a meeting with them on this Thursday, and actually Mayor Herbig is part of that Affordable Housing Committee, and we met this afternoon to briefly talk about some talking points for that. But in short, we've been conditionally approved for the comments that they provided to us, and so we're in really good position to get that forwarded on. I'll note that these are recommendations that they gave us. And so one thing to note that I did a placeholder, probably the most major one that you'll see is there's a placeholder for something called a land capacity analysis. And I don't recall exactly what page it is. I'd have to scroll down which one it is, but
That's the title of it.
That's the title of it, is land capacity. So you'll see a placeholder for it. It's probably at least halfway, if not 2/3 of the way through. But that is something that our consultant, Kimberly Horn, so Clay White and Nick Chen, they're going to be working on that, conditioned on the council as part of consent agenda next week. they'll be doing that body of work, and then they'll subsequently be included in this element. So it's not there yet because it hasn't been completed, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And what effectively that does is to identify, to make sure that we have enough capacity, land capacity in the city to accommodate required affordable housing needs and or just general housing capacity. So that's what that is. There's also something called a buildable lands analysis, which is kind of coupled with residential and commercial. That's something separate, but the land capacity is related to housing specifically. So every jurisdiction needs to do that. We didn't quite complete that work yet, or we didn't. So we need to address that as part of the comments from King County. And so you'll see that in a future draft. So before the commission makes a recommendation, which is going to be coming up in knock on wood in October, or possibly, no later than that. Well, we'll see how it goes, to get that to council. And then, of course, our goal is to have both housing and land use, which are the final two elements that we need to do as part of this huge body of work that you've all been working on, or all of us have been working on for the last 2 years. And once that's done, then the council will be adopting the entirety of the comp plan in December. So we're really truly can say that we're on the home stretch here. I'd say we're on the third, if not fourth quarter of this long journey. So, anyway, back to the housing element. That I just wanted you all to be aware of that with regards to the housing, the land capacity analysis. With that said,
May I
sure.
just clarify? So our consultants are going to get back to us with different parts of recommended language that could be used as a part of this element on those topics.
Yes. So in addition to the middle housing portion that they're doing, which is another large piece, they're coming to that to speak to that again to you next meeting. So that's, I believe, September 17th, if I'm not mistaken. So your next scheduled meeting, that will be dedicated to middle housing. But once they complete the land capacity analysis portion, that'll be coming later. And then the finality of all this work that they've done, meaning middle housing and land capacity, will all be bundled together in this element. And then you will have that to review.
And then we're going to have a hearing.
And then you'd have a hearing on that, correct? So
I hate to add, go ahead. I'm just wondering if we might need another work session in addition to what this middle, I can see missing middle together with land capacity and all of the integral issues. This is very hot issue.
Yeah. So to clarify what we're not anticipating, we need to get through the comprehensive plan portion, which is the goals and policies and the element itself. Now, if you remember what Director Bent said in previous meetings, is we have this body of work related to middle housing that is code related, that we staff would like to get through that this year in concert with the comp plan. However, with that said, we fully understand the complexities of that. And so with that said, if it does go into 2025, which it very well may happen now, right? So that is okay, because we have until June 30th of 2025 as a deadline by the state to adopt the regulations of that. So
which means Kenmore city code.
Correct. Yes. So there's comprehensive plan. That portion needs to be adopted. Then there's the code, which is related to this, but we have more time to get through that. And we're fully anticipating, with the time that we have remaining with you and what we need to get through to council, that we're going to probably 90% chance need more time to get through that. And so I wouldn't get too worried about that or stressed out about getting it to the end of
Not
2024. So just to want to clarify that for the record.
Okay, Vice Chair Vanderleen.
I'm very happy to hear you say that. 99.9 would make me really
Sure.
comfortable. But I really see these two capacity analysis as being key to
Yes.
being able to get through the land use and the missing middle discussion.
Yeah.
That's going to be important input. So I'm assuming that we're going to see the reports in their entirety and not just a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's good. It's a requirement as part of that. So we need to essentially what a land capacity analysis, rather than just saying it in words, we need to show our work. So just like you would do in class, in a math class, you got to show your work, how you got the answer. So that's what that's the purpose of this. And so it's going to be noted in the comprehensive plan, but also we'll have a separate analysis and report that's what Kimley Horn is going to be providing us.
Good. Okay, so the
Yep.
timeliness of that report will
Not sure if
impact
you're going
when
to,
we can actually
but-
get through the rest of these elements.
Yeah, well, and again, the elements we need to adopt by the end of the year, but the middle housing code, which is all the intricacies of the Kenmore Municipal Code and how that all works, we're gonna have more time with that, but you've seen some, or you will be seeing some minor changes to the land use and the housing as it relates to middle housing. That's not the heavy lift. The heavy lift is in the code updates.
Okay, I could,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yep.
I think we could probably do a good job on the policy component of this and then move on to the.
And that's
code.
what Debbie and I are fully anticipating, and I'll just say for Clay too, who's helping us out, that we'll get through this comprehensive plan narratives of these two elements plus the goals and policies, which again, I'd like to see if you have any comments on the narratives tonight, but because we didn't touch the goals and policies yet, I'd like to receive comments from you, what you might have on those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're good. Thank you for clarifying. My mind is not twirling right now. So, all right. So we're on the housing element, and we're going to start on let's get this out of here. We're going to start on page 1 and go through the pictures, the table, I guess, figures on page 4. So Planner Hall, is there anything there that you want to bring to our attention that needs further work?
Sorry, we're on page, did you
1
say
through
4?
4. 1 through 4.
1 through 4, okay. So nothing has changed on 1 through 3. Page, sorry, H-3, which I have up on the screen now. This is a new section that we included to further elaborate on the Kenmore Equity Analysis and East Side for All report. This is a comment that we received from Affordable Housing Committee to just provide additional information on that. So this just discusses what that is. We're also noting that these reports will be included as appendices as part of the housing element or comprehensive plan. So that's what those 2 paragraphs are on that page.
Those, if they're not done by the end of the year?
Oh, these are completed reports.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
I
Yeah, these were part of phase 1 middle housing. They did the racial or the equity analysis
Yes.
report, if you recall, PRR, and then East Side for All. That was already completed.
Thank you for
Yep.
reminding me. Okay, anything? Go ahead, Commissioner Banasinski.
This is on page 1, lines 24 to 25. I think this is an artifact of editing, but I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page about the concept behind it. The sentence is to achieve this, a diverse range of housing choices located within Kenmore's neighborhoods, comma, downtown. And I think that would be the end of the sentence. So I think I ended on just striking downtown as well, given that I
Oh.
consider downtown a neighborhood. But that's what I wanted to check in with the rest of the commission about, is if it would be better for it to read Kenmore's neighborhoods, period, stop, or Kenmore's neighborhoods, comma, including downtown, if there's any particular reason to call out downtown as also a place where people live. I lean toward just striking downtown, but I'm raising it for the reason I just mentioned.
Any comment on Commissioner Banaszewski's suggestion?
I think it
Commissioner
would be
Dorian.
consistent to strike downtown, because when we get to the goals, objectives, and policies, there isn't a distinction between residential neighborhoods is referenced, but meaning inclusive of downtown. So I would agree, therefore, that striking downtown would be consistent.
Okay, so please make a motion.
I move to strike the word downtown from line 25 on page 1.
Seconded.
Okay, remove the word downtown on line 25.
Yes, that's right. And end the sentence with neighborhoods.
I can barely understand you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's right, what you said.
That's
So
the motion.
That's the motion, yes.
Clerk, you're good? Thank you. All right, is there any further comment on the motion? If there's no objections, the motion is adopted. Next, Commissioner Dorian.
So if we're going all the way back to the start, this is probably the point to make this point. So I looked around at a few other housing elements, and I noticed that Bothel's current element is named the Housing and Human Services element. And I thought that was interesting for us, just in terms of the direction that both the city is going, but also that this element is going, is that there's actually a large degree of human services contained within this, and we don't have a separate human services element or sub-element. So I was interested in potentially making a motion that we could rename the element the Housing and Human Services element, given that there's prior use of that in a neighboring jurisdiction.
Okay, there's a motion to change the name of this element to the Housing and
Human Services.
Services element. Well, before we get into discussion, I need to ask our planner, technically, how is this?
That's interchangeable. It's up to local discussion. As long as we have the items that are required by either state law or agencies or the county, I think the naming of that, and I agree that makes sense to address that. So although we don't have a housing and human services plan yet, we're working towards that, and we do have a number of items, as Commissioner Dorian said, to this. So I think effectively that would be
That's
fine.
acceptable from a planning
yes.
perspective.
Correct.
Okay, so would you make a motion?
I would move that we rename the element the Housing and Human Services element.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Olson. So is there further discussion? Commissioner Olson.
I just want to say, I think this makes quite a bit of sense. Trying to divorce housing and services has not resulted very good outcomes for neighborhoods in the past. Trying to, I don't know, there's another comment in the land use element I'll get into later where we discuss efficiency of residences. And whenever I see the word efficiency, it's very important, in my opinion, to ask efficiency for what purpose. This is a bit of a tangent, but point is, I think it's important to keep these things together. So.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimously adopted. Okay, so any further commissioner comments through page 4? So now we're going to go from page, I'm sorry, Commissioner Benazinski.
So this is on page H4, lines 3 through 6. The 2 sentences encompassed by those line numbers seemed redundant to me, so I wondered if we could just go with one of them instead of having them both.
All right, yeah, that was a repeat. Yeah, they're the same thing, so sorry.
No, that's
So
okay.
is that an administrative correction?
I think so, yeah. So if there's a preference to one of the 2 sentences, although they say similar things, I'll leave it up to the commission, or I can just say number 1 is fine.
That's fine with me,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
noted.
So that's an administrative.
Yeah.
Fix. Anything else?
And then my second comment on that page has to do with the sentence on lines 8 through 14. And it's a question that I raised, I think last time we talked about this, but I'd like to raise it again. It's talking about the area of Kenmore, the census tract in Kenmore that has, I think it's identified as moderate displacement risk. But as we talked about, that may be driven by some areas, micro areas within there that may be actually high displacement risk. And I'm wondering if that is worth calling out, as it may inform or shape our thinking about policies in that area.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find additional data in that. I was just seeing if you had a comment on that last time, but I didn't note
Oh,
that. So yeah, no,
yeah.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think I might have made a general comment about data. We try our best to get as finite of data as we can, although as you know, previously noted, some of these are either a few years old or they're not as specific. However, with that said, I'll try to see if I'll also ask Tammy if there's any other data sets that we might get a little bit more granular, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Commissioner Olson.
Point of information on the census tracts, those are larger defined areas, right?
Yeah, there's census tracts, blocks. I'm trying to think the levels, but I think block is the one that's narrower, or it could be the other way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would need to review my
Yeah.
land use code, or not land use code, surveying class, I guess, how to split those up. But I suppose what I'm wondering is just adding a note, maybe a sentence or a comma to the end of that sentence, where we emphasize that while the census tract there is no census tract as a whole that has a high displacement risk, whatever that sub or more granular property, or not property, struggling to find the words here, land area likely has a higher displacement risk, increasing the overall census tract, just to Commissioner Benasinski's point.
Well, my concern is, are we calling out areas, or should we make this a little more general? I think we know what we're looking at on that particular, and everybody else in the city will know almost. So I'm questioning whether we should be calling out specifics.
my thoughts on this is, at least I don't intend to necessarily call out those specific locations, although I think perhaps we should when we discuss manufactured housing communities in a separate area. But simply to emphasize that, I don't know, right now as it reads as if there is no place with a high displacement risk, and that's simply not the case. Well, I shouldn't say that. That may not be the case. I shouldn't say that simply isn't the case. As far as census tracts go, there isn't a location that has a high displacement risk. But looking at smaller portions, neighborhoods, and communities, that isn't necessarily true. So, I mean, potentially we want to call that out elsewhere as to make it explicit, in my opinion, but.
The only thing that come to my mind was, I think it's important that we continue to be data-driven here. Otherwise, we slip into subjective commentary. And so if there's data out there that says there's a more granular report that can support that sort of conclusion, then I think that's something we had to consider. But if we can't put our finger on that, then I think we need to be careful.
Could be being fair. So with that noted, and if you agree to that notion, Commissioner Olson, our esteemed planner will get back to us, because I'm sure you probably would generally agree with.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's back to the data, I do agree with Commissioner Vanderland's last comment, providing the factual information is very important. So if there's something that is more granular or specifies something, by all means, we'll certainly address it in here. I can say that, the data that we do get tends to be from either state, which I noted the sources, Department of Health or the US Census. They're not the best in terms of granular data. So I'll see if I can get my hands on them, but there's definitely no guarantees. So, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'll just see what I can do to narrow it down.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Olson.
To follow up, I suppose what I'm looking for is not to call a specific area out, but simply to emphasize that a census tract is a fairly large area.
Yeah.
And there may be communities within a census tract that have a lower or higher displacement risk than what the census tract as a whole is reporting. And I don't see that as being subjective. That's just the nature of aggregating to a larger area.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you worded it that way, then, if the planning commission wanted to add something to that effect, I don't think that would be, too specific. You're just saying that because of the levels of the tract, the census tract or block or what have you, there are some areas of Kenmore in the community that may have higher displacement. So something to that. I'm pretty sure I'd have to, as we get to the policies, there's going to be something to that effect that talks about displacement and how do we address that and things like that. But if there's something in the narrative portion that the commission desires to have, that's okay.
Commissioner Olson, are you?
I suppose.
Was that a raised hand or a maybe hand?
That was a raised hand. I suppose I should provide some clear language, perhaps, instead of just my thoughts on the matter. So no census tract in Kenmore was identified as a high displacement risk, comma, this would be what I would add to line 11, comma, neighborhoods may be higher or lower than the census tract as a whole, just as like a very brief acknowledgement that we need to take each neighborhood and community independently.
Okay, how about how would the commission feel if we ask Commissioner Olson and our planner to talk about this and maybe bring back something that you would have ready for us for an amendment? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any objections? Okay. If there's nothing more on page 4, we're going to move page 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Let's see, if no changes on 5, 6, 7, or 8 since the last meeting. I know we did have some comments on these, but nothing has changed since the last meeting.
Just a quick question here. Do we, I think I might have asked this last time. Do we have recent numbers? This is from 2022.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I noted that in your comments from last time.
Yeah.
We don't have anything newer than that, unfortunately, based on data that we provide in the state or the county. It comes in like certain batches and certain dates, so they don't all match up at the same time. So
Are these every 5 years? Because it says 5-year estimates. I mean, when are they released essentially as far as?
yeah, I'd have to check and see when the next one is, but I mean, in terms of where we're at now, this is kind of the most up to date that we can get our hands on. So I think I mentioned it last time. We try our absolute best to try to get the most up to date numbers that we can that's effectively out as we adopt it. But as everybody knows, the minute you adopt it, it's going to be outdated. So, I mean, I don't mean that in a snarky remark, but it's just true with the nature of data. So we just try to get, what we have available into the elements and then, work from there. And if there's something specific that we see that, hey, in the next docket cycle next year or the year after, we need to amend or something that might be worthy of fixing as part of the docket cycle, by all means, we'll bring that back and the commissioner can consider that. But as of now, this is kind of where we're at.
Maybe it'd be a good idea to include some sort of disclaimer that, let's just disclose that.
Yeah.
That we're dealing with the best available data that we have. Given the timing and structure of that data, there may be underlying trends that are invisible to us at this time. But as you said, we will continue to update that data and we let that drive our policy decisions.
Yeah, I can certainly put a footnote or something at the end of the element that just kind of notes that to that effect. So, yeah, it's fair.
Is there any objection to that amendment? Hearing none, we'll move on. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Benzinski.
This is on page H5. And I'm just hoping you can take a very brief moment to tell us why the first section was removed, lines 2 through 9. Is there a rationale for that? Oftentimes when I saw things removed, I could locate them in other places, but this one didn't seem to shift around anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm not remembering why this got removed. It's possible that it's because it's not directly related to the housing element. However, with that said, knowing the importance of natural environment to the community, I could justify in keeping that section back into it. But yeah, my apologies. I just don't recall on why that specific section's been removed. That's probably my best answer for you. But I'm certainly not opposed to removing the strike and keeping it in there if the commission wishes.
So there's a suggestion that we unstrike. We reestablish lines 2 through 9 on page 5. Is there any objection? We'll do it then. Okay, so we're through H5.
Actually, if you don't mind, do I just make a comment? I think this is very important to add this back in here because it does establish a principle which we probably want to carry forward somewhere in the objective section that talks about our housing choices and our housing planning and our land use planning all have to take into effect that those choices impact the natural environment, and our objective is to fit those housing choices within the natural environment. I think that's well stated here, but I also think when I read this myself, I was thinking, this is actually a pretty good objective too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might have been just like, as I was going through sections to strike above, it might have gotten inadvertently stricken, so my apologies. So yeah, great suggestion.
All right. That's page 5, page 6, 7, and 8. Is there anything more on any of those pages? Hearing none, we're going to move to page 9, 10, 11, and 12, 9 through 12. Commissioner Banzinski.
This is on page 9. This is something I noticed last time too, and I don't know why I didn't bring it up, but I will this time. I'm in table H, I guess it's HA.
HB.
HB, okay, thank you. I don't have my glasses on. Why in column 1 are there 2 date ranges? Is that on purpose or is that kind of an artifact of the editing? Because none of the other columns have 2 date ranges.
Oh, yeah, that shouldn't be 2 date ranges, so it should
Okay.
be 20, I believe it's 20. I'll double check. I believe it's the latter, but I'll confirm that. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, that I don't know what happened there.
You should probably it's when you start editing
Yeah.
documents like these.
Things go wonky. Yeah. So
So that's
check that.
administrative correction.
Administrative, yeah, but I'll note it for the next draft.
As long as you don't put 19,
Thanks for
18.
Thanks for catching that. Yeah.
All right. Any other items through page 12? Commissioner Dorian.
Just one data point, bottom of page 11 about the ADUs. I noticed that number last time and it's impressive. I think there's 60 accessory dwelling units. But I'm wondering if it would be possible to get an update on that because it's kind of interesting timing. That was in 2021, but the city had just amended the regulations in 2020. Have we seen a lot more permitting since then, or has it stagnated? Or I would be interested just in seeing a more recent number for the.
Oh, you're talking about line 28?
Yeah, sorry, 28, 29. Yeah, just the number there is from 2021. I'm wondering if there's a more recent.
Yeah, I can check with the Development Services Department and see if there's a updated number. Yeah, that's one that we could probably easily amend because we have the data to show for that. So yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you.
And Todd, just because you don't have enough else to do, if you can get that data, it would be interesting to see it broken down versus ADUs that are integral to an existing facility versus freestanding.
Oh, you mean detached and attached?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, that's through page 12. So now we're going to go 13 through page 16.
So I'll just make some brief comments on this since there were changes here. So figure H-10 rented versus owned units. This one was one that I believe was requested by Affordable Housing Committee, and we just wanted to note the breakout between those types and our neighboring, comparable jurisdiction. So that's the reason for that ad. And then just a couple of wording clarifications on the next page. So yeah.
Okay, I'm having problems doing tables, and I see figure H11. But maybe, I think it says 9. So are you on H?
So figure H-10 is on page 12 or on the screen. And that's called rented versus owned units.
Oh, I just can't read it. Oh, I see the little H and the big 10.
Yeah,
There you go.
H-10, that's an ad. And if
In
the
the blue.
numberings are off, I mean,
It's
just
okay,
let
you
me
just-
know. I've had to go back, I don't know how many times and fix numbers, but we'll certainly get that right for the end.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that's
sure
another
you will.
administrative fix. But yeah, this one was just an ad to clarify rented versus owned.
Question on H10.
Yeah.
What, could we maybe add a percentage in these numbers? Looking at the table, it really, in my mind, doesn't accurately show what the real relationship is. Those bars really don't have enough discrimination. I see some significant
Would you like
variation
to
across
have
the cities.
the numbers and the percentages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think you get a distorted picture. When I look at, for instance, King County, you've got a very different number than, or if you look at the individual cities, you get very different numbers, but they don't have the sensitivity in the graph to show that
Yeah.
in the bar.
And I just noticed so there's a couple comments missing in there, so Shannon and I'll fix that. Yeah, we'll try. Yeah, I think we might have it in the past, but if not, and we'll superimpose on there. There's ways to get around it.
Commissioner Olson.
As a follow-up to the previous comment, I guess my first thought looking at this is, could we just replace the percentages with the rented versus owned units, and then on the y-axis, and then just put the percentage of each in the blue or yellow portion of the bar, and that way it would scale, right? Because right now it's making Kenmore, Bothell, Kirkland, King County, they all look the same size.
You have
right?
if you have a visual representation or idea, send that.
It won't work.
work?
I see the
Okay.
problem.
One will be like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to do it
I'll just make a
logarithmic, and
note,
that
like
doesn't work.
Shannon's been great. She's trying so hard to get me all the tables and whatnot, and some of them just don't work. So they're just
That's a
kind of
valid
nature of the
issue.
beast.
All right, so we are trying to get through to finish page 16.
Oh, sorry, Chair.
Yes,
I-
Commissioner Dorian.
One thing on page 13, for clarity, so lines 20, 21, 21 and 22, rather, lines 21 and 22, there's a subhead titled Emergency Housing, Emergency Shelters and Permanent Supportive Housing. We discussed this last time, but because it's older text in there as well, it doesn't just describe those housing types. So my proposal would be to change the subhead to be housing for vulnerable populations instead, and then that covers what we're looking at there is kind of aging adults plus those experiencing or facing homelessness plus those with special needs, all covered within a terminology of vulnerable population or housing for vulnerable populations.
Okay, so what is your exact request?
I would move that we change the subheading on lines 21 and 22 of page 13 to read housing for vulnerable populations.
Is there any objection to this amendment? We're going to go with it then. All right. Commissioner Banazinski.
I have something on that page as well so page 13, lines 24 to 25. Again, I think this might be just another artifact of editing, but I suggest that it read, currently Kenmore has very limited housing for people who need emergency shelters. Because right now, a very limited number of housing doesn't read correctly to me. So again, I recommend currently Kenmore has very limited housing. Strike A and number and of.
Any comments or objections? Or you understand what we're doing, Todd?
Yep, I got it.
Okay,
Great,
great.
thank you.
Next item, folks, we're on trying to get through page 16, I think.
Yeah, I just added this one paragraph in there to note the importance of faith organizations in Kenmore. This is common not only in Kenmore, but all around Puget Sound. So it's just wanted to specifically note that. So that's the purpose of that one.
I have a question. The table HF.
HF.
Okay, 2021. Is there anything we can do to improve that a little bit?
Yeah, this is one of those things that was done with Arch, and Arch hasn't updated anything. So not since then. I can ask Debbie and see if we're able to get any newer data either from them or maybe there's another source. I can certainly try and see if I can get that. That's where that comes from though, is from our partnership with
Right.
Arch. So she's on the board. I'll see if I can pull some strings, see if I can get something new.
Okay. And Commissioner Olson?
This is not an important comment. I just wanted to say, I really love the walkshed analysis done for figure H11 on page 15. That's really cool to see.
So on page 17, looking at the graph here, it's the ACS 5-year estimate from 2020. I think previously we've had ACS 5-year estimates from 2022. Just wondering if we can perhaps update this chart as well.
Sorry, my apologies. Which
I'm
one?
looking at page 17.
17?
Yeah, figure H12 is what I'm looking at. The source is from
Yeah.
the
I'll see if I can.
previous ACS estimates are from 2022. This is from 2020, seems like.
Good. Okay, so now we are 17 through 20.
I think this was a comment from the commissioners, if I'm not mistaken, just to clarify the table, what was indicated in the table and the narrative didn't match. And so I clarified that. I think that was Commissioner Dorian, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what that one changed because of that comment. It just didn't make sense before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about ready to turn the page from 20. So we're 21 through 24 now.
So there's the land capacity placeholder on page 22. So that's the spot that I've reserved for some narrative once we get more information on that analysis from Kimley Horn. We'll place it in here. So you'll see that in future amendments.
Commissioner Olson.
I had a question about figure H15, land zone for housing by density. It looks like many of the downtown parcels aren't highlighted. Is that simply because those are already developed to the highest density or close to that allowable under the existing zoning?
Yeah, or they're a different, well, they could be open space parcels. I think there's schools in there, the ones that are blank, or they're commercial mixed use zones. So most of those downtown ones are downtown, like regional commercial, things like that. That doesn't mean that housing isn't permitted in there, but for those that are specifically residential only defined, that's where these are being shown. So
This downtown has its own.
it has its own zoning type.
We just passed that, I think. Just kidding. Just kidding, guys.
Not yet.
Well, that was about 708. Just. Okay. So, Commissioner Banaszewski, sorry about that.
I have two things, I think, in this next section. One is just in general, and a point of information more than anything else, because I've been asked by community members. I believe that we talked about this as a commission maybe several years ago, and I have a memory of the answer, but I want to ask again now because my memory can sometimes be like a sieve. But can we meet our required housing targets, our capacity, without Lake Point developing any housing?
It's too premature yet to note that's the purpose of the land
Okay.
capacity analysis. So
Mhm.
I don't want to make a statement yet until we find that information out. I think
Okay.
I know what the answer is, but again, I don't want
Okay,
to state the answer.
all right,
You're postponing that. to the
Exactly,
next meeting.
postponing it to a future meeting.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my second item is on page 23. It's on table H. Is that an I? City of Kenmore adopted housing growth targets.
Well,
Yeah,
definitely
table
not
HI,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not one. Yeah.
I am curious about why the columns to the right of the first column don't add up to the first column, excluding the emergency housing bed. So I kept wanting them all to add up to 3,070, and they really just don't. So I'm curious about that.
I think this is one that I was just actually looking at today, and let me pull it up on my own laptop because I think I ran into the same issue.
Well, if you want to take this under consideration and get back to us, that's just fine, esteemed planner of ours.
Yeah, I did go look at the 2021 King County CPP amended in 2023 to see if I could find it, and I did, and the numbers are also different in that table.
Yes, I just changed it today. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is wrong.
Okay,
So
great.
my
Yeah,
apologies.
no.
I have
yeah.
the new update because I was looking at because I was working on affordable housing committee stuff in preparation for Thursday, I noticed a different table that had different numbers and than what I initially showed here. So I've corrected that in the next iteration. So you'll see that. That should add up.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. So if no one else has anything through page 24, we're going to go page 25 through 28. Actually, we're going to go through page 26 at the end of the and then we get into the goals, objectives, and policies. So if anybody has something before we start on line 16 on page 26, because that's a separate section. We're good. Okay, now we're going to do goal, everything. It's not good. We'll go through 1-3, H-3, that means. H1 through. So that's what we're going to talk about. 1 through 3. Any comments? Requests?
I know previously we had, looking at policy H-1.1.3, we wanted to not call out certain corporations, companies, organizations. Puget Sound Energy is listed on here. So I'm not sure if we want to keep it consistent and perhaps remove PSE.
No, we're on line 37 and 38.
Correct, yeah.
And what you're suggesting is we don't call out Puget Sound Energy.
That's correct, yes.
So that's a suggestion to strike Puget Sound Energy. Commissioner Olson.
Could we replace it with utility providers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would make more sense.
And then we'd substitute it with the words utility providers. Any objection? Hearing none, that's what we'll do. Okay, so we're still moving through H11, H12, and H13. Commissioner Vanderling.
Yes, H1.1.4. I understand what we're trying to accomplish here. I am concerned, however, that ADUs, you can't have an ADU if you're going to remove the existing facility that's going to be ancillary to. I'm thinking maybe we ought to take ADUs out of this.
Yeah, this was a proposed, anything you see with relationship to middle housing ADUs, these were first proposals from the consultant. So we can take your comments now and address them at their next meeting, certainly then too. Yeah, I can definitely note that or take commission's recommendations now.
I would recommend striking it and or have an explanation beforehand. Making the consultant aware that we have a question about the applicability of the ADUs in this section.
So does our planner wish to take that under consideration and get back to us?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly make a note of that, and I can share that with a consultant and they could address it at the next meeting as part of our discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that good enough? Right? Commissioner Olson, I see that left hand.
While I generally agree, I think there are instances where a decision to remove a home and build a new home could be made if there is some restriction to an ADU. And I could see it happening in the case of an ADU, although I agree it's much less likely. But I think for a DADU, a detached accessory dwelling unit, it might make more sense to put that incentive there.
No, Now, just so we're clear, we're on page 27 line.
Page 26, line
sorry.
41. And I guess I'm proposing
41.
just for staff to check in with
Yeah.
Kimberly
well,
Horn if
I'll note this one and they'll provide further context at the next meeting.
okay.
Any objection? Hearing none, okay. Is there any, sorry, I got mixed up. I'm trying to keep track of what's going on here. So Commissioner Dorian.
Not an edit, but just some other policies that I saw in a document from Commerce that I thought were interesting and maybe relevant here if they're not covered elsewhere. So they had language around develop minimum property maintenance standards to ensure the safety and suitability of existing housing stock, which I thought was interesting. Encourage homeowners to take advantage of existing maintenance and preservation programs, services, and resources, which maybe we have elsewhere in another part of the objectives, but that one was interesting. And then I'm not sure if this is what we were talking about with regard to H-1.1.4, but there's also a broader policy, encourage the rehabilitation, relocation, and reuse rather than demolition of existing housing, which I thought was quite a good way to phrase that as well. So just those kind of ideas around what, like maintenance standards, encouraging homeowners to take advantage of resources, and then the encouraging rehabilitation rather than, and other uses rather than demolition.
Yeah, we can either come up with some, or if you have something specific you want to share, then we could craft some policy related to the commerce ones.
Share those, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, then that's what we'll do. Okay, so that brings us through page 28. And, or no, I'm sorry, that's not correct. Gets us through H-1. Go ahead.
Okay, I have some suggestions on page for page 27 for objective H-1.4. These were also policy suggestions that came from the Commerce document on housing that all had to do with housing sustainability, or I think it was sustainable housing, that I couldn't really find anywhere else in our policies. I will read out the ones that I liked for the commission's consideration. Plan for energy efficient housing that is designed to maximize use of renewable resources such as solar and wind. Encourage housing retrofits that make them more resilient to natural disasters and climate change, are more energy efficient, and provide healthier indoor environments, including good air quality. So those are two. A third, encourage the use of long-lived, low-maintenance building materials, high-efficiency energy systems, and low-impact development techniques that reduce housing life cycle costs and provide better environmental performance consistent with the city's climate action plan. Another one, encourage health-related improvements to older homes, including the removal of lead-based paint, asbestos, and other potentially harmful materials. And if the commission generally likes those, I'm happy to email them directly to Todd so he doesn't have to write them all down.
That's fine.
That we're going to go with that.
Should share them to me, and I can include those, and then you can consider those at the next.
All right. That was 1.4. Anything more there? So we're going to move to H2. And that starts on 28 and goes through, well, up the top half of 29. Commissioner Dorian.
Similar edit to earlier, I would propose renaming the goal to provide housing opportunities in Kenmore for vulnerable populations. And I can give context on why. In the commerce document, they have a section for vulnerable populations, which includes people with special needs, those experiencing homelessness, and aging adults. So it's a sense of a more inclusive term.
Now that's line.
Oh, gosh, I'm in my own document.
21.
21.
21.
Yeah, 21. Same.
No,
With that, and it might have to flow down then into 23, 24. Well, actually, there might be a few edits that would be
Yeah,
suggested by that.
yeah, in that section, I'll look for special needs, and I can replace with vulnerable populations, and for that matter, I'll look in the entirety of the document just to make sure we're consistent.
all right, any further comments on H-2? Okay, we're moving on to residential growth, H-3.
So this is a section that you'll see several new ads. Each one of these have been added by Kimley Horn for consideration. So if you do have questions for those now, we can take note, and I can make them aware of those, or we can certainly address those at their next meeting, which is the purpose, you know, of the next meeting, is to go over these types of policies and or proposed code amendments.
Banazinski.
I have a question about policy H-3.1.2 on line 35 on page 29. I wonder if that policy is consistent with the new state mandate that middle housing types be encouraged in all residential
A
zones.
good point. Yeah. I can ask the team that if that's one we need to change.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson.
All right, so this is policy H-3.1.1. In this policy, we're discussing ensuring zoning regulations accommodate a range of housing styles, appropriate locations, and diversity. And I'm not sure if this is the right spot to put this, but I would be interested in putting services in here as well. Corner stores, coffee shops, etc. Right now, that's, from what I can tell, not allowable in most parts of the city, except for the downtown core, couple spots on 68th by the highway, a spot on Juanita by the highway. But if we wanted those types of amenities for people in their neighborhoods, that's not an option. I'm not quite sure where to put this, or frankly, even how to approach this topic. I feel like it's something I bring up quite often, but I would like to see amenities as a part of this, especially as we're increasing density. I think allowing for, you know, more local corner store style amenities is important. I can come back with language on this one though.
Commissioner Banczynski.
To Commissioner Olson's point, I believe I did see a new policy like that somewhere in this
Yeah, I miss it.
document, and my scroll is really slow.
I read it earlier.
Yeah,
Well, perfect. I'll go read that.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
I'm glad I
I think I
missed it.
remember your comment, Commissioner Olson, and I believe we added it, but I don't remember where.
it is highlighted in the nice turquoise color.
Did I just miss it?
My scroll is really slow. I don't know why.
I'll find it. I apologize for
Oh, no.
wasting time there.
Yeah, I think it's in here somewhere, or if not, it's the land use element, but yeah, thank you.
Anything else on H-3? Seeing none, we're going to move on to H-4, starting on page 30 and going all the way to line 21 on 33. Commissioner Banczynski.
So this is a comment on page 31, line 25 and 26. Could we have a footnote that contains the RCW? I went and looked it up and it fits. And I think it would, just for a future reader, it would be easier not to have to leave this document to understand what's in that RCW.
Okay. Are we good, Todd?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Commissioner Vanderling.
Yes, policy H-4.1.7. Are those two sentences in there repetitive? Don't they speak to the same thing?
Yeah, they sure seem like.
Yeah, I like to repeat things just for added emphasis. I'm just saying. I have a tendency to do that. I don't know why, but I also transpose numbers all the time. So maybe this is an effect of that. Yeah, so whichever sentence you prefer, I can just delete the other. So if the commission has
I'll just throw out, I like develop strategies versus pursue incentives.
so keep first sentence.
Yeah.
We agree. Commissioner DeLorean? No, Dorian. If you really are good, we'll call you DeLorean.
That would be great.
Upgrade your.
Yeah, it's coming. Back to the Future's coming to the stage. I
You
saw it
think
the
I've
other day.
been down the road on Brew Row at this point?
So just back a bit, it must be lines 15, 16, somewhere around there, the policy 4.1.4. The word aspire is just, it stands out as a bit odd to me in terms of like something that we might not really be able to do. I would prefer something a bit stronger, like support the preservation of
I think
I
this
would
was in
agree
the
with
previous
that.
one.
Any objections? Okay. Support it is. All right, so we're still on H4, and that's Banaszynski.
This, for policy H.4.1, I found some other policy ideas in the commerce document that I will again read to see if the commission has any concerns, and if they don't, I will send them to you directly, Todd. They would be, in conjunction with public and private housing providers, the city should identify and encourage preservation of affordable units and publicly assisted, in parentheses, subsidized housing developments that are at risk of converting to market rate housing. And then encourage and support efforts to maintain opportunities for lower cost housing where, oh, my note is off my page. Sorry. Where housing exists through preservation or other efforts, and particularly in centers where most redevelopment pressure will occur. I'll have to move my note. Let me see if I can do that.
So would you provide this to our esteemed planner
Yes, if the commission
for
is okay with that.
likely inclusion, and then we'll talk about it at the next meeting? Is that good?
No.
No
I think we need to
objections?
see the whole thing.
Yes.
Right.
Chair Thompson, if I may, I'm looking at this page further, I'm noting a potential wording thing, and I'd like the commission's thoughts on this. So looking at policy 4.1.4 and 1.5, we call out mobile home and manufactured park, and then in the next section, I strike out mobile home. Now I think my brain was heading in the route of most of these units are called manufactured homes now. Their mobile home was an old term that was used for a long time, but that no longer is the standard language. And in our code, we say manufactured home communities, MHC. So if I may, I could just strike out or remove the addition I made in 4.1.4 and just keep it that way it was, which was manufactured housing communities.
Any objections?
To avoid confusion.
No objections.
Okay.
That's just an administrative
Yep.
correction.
Yeah, I
plus.
just noticed that, but I just want to make the commission aware.
All right. So anything more on H-4? Going once. Commissioner Dorian.
I can't remember if it's elsewhere. There was a nice section that I saw in another planning document about home ownership, which had some good policy suggestions there. So if the commission's all right, I might just send some of those draft policies along and we can all review it next time. Does that work, or do we want to? Yeah.
Doing a quick word search to see if there's anything there is. Support alternative homeownership models that lowers barriers. That's it. So just the one, but yeah, if there's additional.
Would you be willing to work with the esteemed staff member?
Yes,
on
indeed.
working on
Yeah.
this one? Thank you. All right. So we're still trying to get down to, as long as I don't lose track. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, just a second here. Right, okay. Anything more before we go to H-5? H5, and that brings us, that's only on page 33. Commissioner Banazinski.
I also liked some of Commerce's policies on home ownership, and Commissioner Dorian and I had placed them in H5. It might not be the right place for them. The other one that Todd found was in H4, I noticed, but the one I liked was encourage existing housing providers and private lenders to provide home buyer education seminars for potential first-time buyers, include outreach to current renters. Seemed like an equity issue to me, which I think is why I chose H5. So if the commission's okay, I will
send that to Todd.
Yeah, and this is a blanket statement for any of the ones that you're gonna send, is just note what section you think makes the most sense for placement, and then I can include those. That'd be very helpful.
All right, so please, if you need some more feedback on that, just talk to Commissioner
Absolutely, yeah.
Bansky.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
take the lead on that. Okay, anything more on H5? Seeing none, we're going to go to implementation strategies. Right? You want those done tonight? Okay. Well, that's going to be quick. So that's going to take us through to the end of where the, oh, those are the comments. So, and then end notes, we don't, and references. So we're just going to, that's on page 34 then. That's all we're looking at.
Just a,
Dorian, thank you.
just a thought. So we do have within the implementation strategies that there's one that relates to monitoring. Well, it's actually housing needs and supply. So what I've noticed is that in other comprehensive plans, there are tracking and monitoring sections, specific as like goals and objectives. And I think it's worth us thinking about bringing that forward as a section now, especially because of the change in focus around staying on top of some of the housing success factors. So again, I can forward on some of the policies that I've seen elsewhere if that would be useful. But I guess generally getting the commission's read on, do we think that's a good idea? Do we want a goal around tracking and monitoring?
Comments from the esteemed?
I'll say two things, one that doesn't really note a preference. I'll just say for the record that I haven't done any, in all the jurisdictions that I haven't done any tracking and monitoring for this. However, with that said, things have drastically changed in the number of years that I've been a planner to today that this may benefit the tracking and monitoring, may help us keep track of that. So I think it's really kind of the importance or necessity that the commission and or council would like to keep dibs on that kind of sort of thing, if that's the right way to put it. But I haven't, things have changed quite a bit in terms of the importance of housing than in previous comp plan updates. This is, I think, my third or fourth one that I've done. And so, I think there's a potential benefit to it, but I'll leave that to the commission if that's something that you'd like staff to consider. And knowing the staff that we do have it is on a limited, that's the challenge. I think I'll just say that is we have a very finite staff, myself, Shannon, and Debbie currently, and it does take some time to do something like that, and so it will be a collaborative effort on our part.
As the finance guy, you just pushed my button. I think to overuse a word, I think it's good to aspire to have that data. Yeah. And I don't know how city, the county, or the state, given the requirements it's already enacted in legislation, how are they going to monitor this without collecting that data? So what comes to my mind is I'd like to maybe certainly have something in here that says that we would cooperate and encourage whatever work with the other jurisdictions to collect this data. I also think for that data to be truly meaningful, we could do a wonderful job and spend a lot of money finding out what's going on in Kenmore.
Yeah.
And after 5 or 6 years, we may have a trend line that would tell us something. But
Yeah,
how does that make decisions?
I
And
think
if we
that's
don't have the data on what's going on elsewhere,
yeah.
how do we know? So I think this is something that begs for a regional solution.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it, Commissioner Vanderland, because we do a lot of partnerships with, you know, say Arch and King County and obviously the state. And so while I do think that, you know, like I was saying, the level of importance of housing has drastically changed since I first became a planner 20+ years ago. And but we do have a lot of tools at our disposal and partners to work with to get some of that data. Yeah, it might not be, you know, as locally specific as we want it. With that said, it's probably good enough to kind of get us an idea of where we're going. We do buildable lands, we do, you know, we have to do annual tracking for permits and things like that. So there's ways to kind of help that, but I support it. I certainly want to say that, so.
Yeah, and I support it as well.
Yeah.
But I kind of smell an unfunded mandate here.
Nicely worded, yeah.
Yes, so I
We-
think this might be worth a conversation between our city council and our representatives.
Yeah, we get a lot
in Olympia.
of unfunded mandates and it just keeps coming down the line like every single year. And this stuff is still, I might have said this in a previous meeting, but this housing and middle housing stuff is just changing daily, and it's going to change for a number of years. And so how we address this challenge of not only affordable housing, but just housing and, you know, availability is just going to be this ongoing thing over the next decade or two. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now. And so it's an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, this is a hot issue in
Yeah.
Olympia right now. So
Yeah, 100%.
this is the time to have a conversation about, okay, how do we manage funding this at a statewide level so we'll actually track whether we're actually making a difference or not.
Yeah.
And that's something that individual cities can't own.
Yeah.
I don't think the city would want them to own it.
Well, and I completely understand the discussion that we just had. Now, from a political perspective, which, you know, policies are, you know, the city council passes this at their politicians, they're elected.
Yeah.
If we were, just suppose for a moment that we were to be able to do tracking or some sort of analysis based on the values of Kenmore, we may be in a position to have significant influence on state and county and Puget Sound Regional Council's policies, because for the same reasons you all just discussed, probably no one else is going to do it. Now, I'm not saying we should, but if there's something that we really don't like so much about what's coming down on us, one way to beat it is through good documentation and then build a case and take it to the legislative committee. Because look, if we could hit the front page of the Seattle Times over that project across the street, we didn't even try to do that. It just happened. Well, I think that we could, you know, do some very good analysis. We're a suburban community. We're not like Shoreline. If you're listening to NPR today, the mayor over there, they're just ready to build, you know, and it's not the same city that people thought it was. Now, we want a livable Kenmore. So what is livable? I think there's already a lot of ideas about what's livable. And what we don't want to see is push down on us choices of how we should make it livable. We do have our responsibilities, but I mean, some of this is going to work and some of it from the policy perspective up there. I'm not talking about city council. I'm talking about
Divine intervention.
way up there, like our county council member, poor Rob, and then our legislators. So that's my other perspective. Not to say I think we have the money to do that, because council has a problem with the budget already, I think. But anyway, that's my perspective.
Well, just to kind of maybe try and tie these things together, I think it is obvious, as you said, and as Todd has alluded to, there's a lot of movement, a lot of concern, rightfully so, on housing. And nobody has the right answer. It's the one thing I think we can be sure of. And as I think you were saying, Dwight, some of the things we're going to try are going to fail. And some people are going to suffer as a result of it.
Yeah.
Sooner we figure that out, the better. And the only way we're going to do that is if we're watching and collecting the data and being able to look at that. Right now, we're shooting in the dark. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's been mandated to the cities across the state.
I mean,
And nobody's really sure how this is going to work or whether it will work. Lots of good intention. But as we roll these out, and it's not going to happen overnight, it's going to happen over a number of years, we have to be watching this and asking ourselves, okay, we tried this, did it work? What was good about it? What was bad about it? If we don't do that, we're just going to have a lot of unintended consequences that somebody's going to pay for down the road. End of sermon.
Commissioner Doran, I gave one too.
I'm going to be careful how I frame this, but there was an elephant brought into the room when we talk about implementation strategies, in that we had a project just over the road that was going to give us 100 units of housing that didn't get implemented, despite the fact that as I read through this housing element, all of the goals and objectives that I see are consistent with it happening. So I think where we're seeing challenges from state, from county, is there's a lot of good words that go into these things, but we're in a propaganda war where people who locally, frankly, should know a lot better because they position themselves as leaders, are misrepresenting what's in documents like this to can projects like that for whatever reason. So there's an aspect of implementation strategy that we have to look at in terms of communications, PR. It's like, how do we communicate the intent of what is here? How do we counter the misinformation that some are emboldened to use, unfortunately? So I think, it's an elephant. I know we don't want to go too far down that strategy, but when we talk about implementation, we had a major lapse in implementation.
And there's also, I think, with some innovative, creative ways about doing this research, that I think we could probably get some grants to do it, because we can do it from a variety of different perspectives, from affordable housing, environment, services, and infrastructure. And no one's really done that. So and we're small enough with some added staff and some added money, we're ripe to maybe put something together. And I think that would help our city and help our state. Maybe even King County, I don't know. But anything more for H5? And the housing implementation strategies, I'm sorry. I was looking right at my thing here. Commissioner Olson.
I have two things. The first item is policy H-5.1.4, line 47. It states, consider environmental health in neighborhoods where affordable housing exists or is anticipated and planned for environmentally healthy neighborhoods for all residents. This just caught my eye because a lot of the higher density housing that we have is within a half mile of a major roadway, which we know has some environmental health implications. Looking at what Bothell has done with their roadways, highways through their downtown core, strategies to limit increases in additional vehicle throughput and increase and meet transportation needs in other manners, I think is something that should fit into the implementation strategies, considering that we plan to build housing within this half-mile corridor because it is a BRT route or will be a BRT route. And frankly meets the Growth Management Act allowances for or utility of mobility through vehicle access. I think I might need to come up with some language on this, but I would propose that we put something in the implementation strategy for a long-term objective to try and limit increases to total vehicle throughput on 522 to current levels and increase 522's efficiency in other manners through the downtown of Kenmore, specifically from say 73rd to 61st, perhaps not those exact limits, but something along those lines. Furthermore, I would also add that if we're considering health impacts to neighborhoods, we've established this in other locations, but walkability, bikeability, golf cart accessibility, and more. There are studies that have shown repeatedly that has real health implications on neighborhoods. I think those would be two separate implementation policies, but they'd be items worth looking into. I think I need to come up with language on this, frankly. This is off the cuff, but not to mention it.
Would you like to draft something up for us?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at writing something in the interim and bringing it for next meeting for your review.
Okay. So I have a question for you, Mr. Hall. With the rail going to
Linwood?
145th,
Oh. Mhm.
what's the projection on the increase of ridership on the 522 here?
I'm not the best expert to respond to that. I mean, if I would think from a practical perspective that there might be a slight increase in ridership to connect to that. I do know that long-term when the S3, I think it's what it's called, Commissioner Olson might know, I think the stride line, basically, when that gets implemented, which we're gonna be opening a station, not we, meaning Sound Transit opens a station in Kenmore. So where the Jiffy Lube now sits, that would then connect to the Link station in Shoreline. And so that would provide a greater opportunity for increased ridership. As it stands now, I think that the current lines or the bus routes, they don't go directly to, I think you have to transfer off of them. And I know like 522 goes down to the Roosevelt station for sure, because I've done it. And then 372 or whatever, I think it further goes down to Seattle, but is University, yeah. So, but the S3 line, the stride line, that the intent of that is to connect with the light rail eventually, but that's a few years down the road.
So my only statement about that, what the implications, just to think about it, of building and density close to 522.
Yeah.
And including our retail and other work opportunities
Sure.
and many more breweries.
Yeah. And that's something that I think that staff and this commission has talked about, maybe indirectly related to the upcoming downtown plan, envisioning, right? The new plan, because we've got the 03 plan that's been fully implemented. And now where do we take the next plan? And one of those things I can clearly see that we address is housing, all forms of affordable and market rate, of course. And then how do we target transit-oriented type development, which we've got to basically, and most of, my opinion, I'd say highly unutilized transit center, right? You've got this massive parking lot that is not used, and it has a great opportunity for, housing and future transit type development and, whatnot. And so that's something that staff has kind of loosely talked about. What do we do with that, and how do we partner better with King County? Because it's their land. And so how do we strategize that in the next iteration of, the downtown plan? But yeah, I'll agree that, we should be focusing on this, transit corridor and getting it to, getting people from Kenmore to where they need to go and vice versa. So
I'm just suggesting that if we were to embrace the whole concept there, that would make a difference with regard to the impetus to put more dense housing where there really a lot of people can go to other places to work.
yeah, absolutely. And they're doing that. It's clearly being done at, with the, opening of the light rail to Linwood, which I've actually worked on years ago at the very beginning stages. So I was in the room with all the architects and the designers and the engineers and all that kind of stuff with the city. And one of the things that we talked about was how do we plan for housing to be sited here? And you see now it's starting to happen. It's taken 10+ years to get there, but it's happening, and it will happen even more. And then Shoreline's going to happen. So there's no reason that Kenmore, being an offshoot, if you will, of that line, to have housing placed along this S3 line and our existing 522, 372 lines. So yeah, I think there's certainly an opportunity here for us, and Lake Point, just have to throw that in there too. So
Well, that's a whole nother problem.
yeah,
But they on NPR today, they were talking about the 145th Street and then all the apartments, and they happened to mention, well, they're 70 foot high. So if anyone was wondering what 70 feet looks like, just drive down to 145th and look at those. And I also understand there's quite a issue about how many trees they cut. So, which is another issue within our own community. And anyway, I'm gonna get off my. Okay, anything else on this piece? Hearing nothing. If we don't get out of here by 10, I'm gonna owe them 2 boxes of chocolate each. Okay, so you want us to move on to land use?
yes, please.
That's thinner, folks. So we're gonna
Back into the next.
break?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a 5-minute break.
It's a dead bird. A bird must have hit the window or something. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, no. Yeah, no dead bird. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I heard a clunk earlier, but I didn't see anything.
You think so?
Yeah, it was like an hour ago, I heard a clunk.
Maybe stunned, yeah, possibly.
It was an hour.
Bird is still alive. The bird is still alive, blinking its eyes. What do you say? No, I saw it, it was blinking its eye. And it's not a baby, that's a full-grown bird, little bird. Okay. Big bird. We're ready to go to land use element. We're going to start with the introduction and go to page 3 on existing conditions. Anything on the introduction?
Point of order here. Are we thinking we're going to get through this tonight?
Well, I think that, we'll see how we do.
You can try, yeah, I mean, I'll just make a note, brief mention that the changes that we made were relatively minor in the text. However, and you did look at this last time just very briefly because it was again at the end of the meeting. So my hope was that you kind of focused on the policies at this meeting if you could, but if there's some things that I've added or changed based on your comments from last meeting in blue, then but however the chair would like to proceed.
Well, actually, we do need to do something more urgent first. I know this is urgent, but not as urgent as next week. So we have to do a presentation on Monday. So I'm going to start at the top, the downtown element. Is there anything that someone wants to specifically talk about? Okay. Is there specific points that should be made with regard that when I do introduction and you would like me to go ahead?
I know we agreed that a memo would go with the downtown. Sorry.
Okay.
I know we agreed that a memo would go with the downtown element about it being very much a work in progress and that we wanted to see it back sooner rather than later. But perhaps that would be good to restate in our opening statement on the downtown element.
Okay, the memo. So who is going to write the memo? Commissioner Olson?
And my understanding was that the commission was going to provide verbal and, a written comment to submit for the record for the council, but I might be mistaken. So if it came from a commissioner or somebody would draft it and then you could submit it on behalf of the commission for that.
Okay, Commissioner Olson.
I can write a brief memo on that. I also did want to say, I wanted to mention the crossing of 522 with the downtown element, and increasing connectivity across.
Okay, so this is the memo that you would help write, you saying? Or is this another topic that you
Well, I
want to
believe-
speak to?
I believe that, well, both. I wanted to just say, I think I was one of the main people saying, I think we should have a memo since we just were providing a light touch, right, on the downtown element. And so we had some reservations, or at least I had, and I believe a couple other commissioners had some reservations. And we just wanted to emphasize that to council, that we will be taking another look at the downtown element in the next year. But this is just a light touch. And aside from that, I personally would like to mention the connectivity across 522 as a highlight of the downtown element.
So you want to no, okay, as a topic that you would like to talk about?
Yes.
Okay, so we got one, okay. So who would like to help write the memo? I'll be glad to. We need no more than 3. Okay, Dave, we need one more volunteer.
Somebody to read and edit.
Yes. Mike.
If others would like to write it, I imagine they'll be more effective than I am. So I'm happy to just limit myself to
Write the
discussion.
memo
Chris had volunteered to write the memo.
to the first draft.
I had, but if others are open to it, I will happily offset that responsibility. So I'm happy to be the third to help out though.
Happy to edit, but somebody's got to write the first version first.
I'll take a stab.
Well, if you're editing, then I don't have a problem giving that to you. That's not a vote. So Dave, John, and myself for the memo, or do you want to take my place, or do you? No. Okay. Dave, written memos, Dave, John, and DT. Mike will edit.
I'll be John now. It's okay. You can.
What did I?
It's the same
I
thing.
mean,
It's okay. I do it.
Chris. I'm sorry, Chris. Well, I knew a John Olson for like 20 years, so that's why I'm, you guys are, okay.
There's a lot of Olsons. My
Chris.
middle name is James, if it's any better.
Is that your middle name?
My middle name is James, yeah. That's close.
Okay, guys. Okay, so let's go to community design element. Community design element. Any speakers on an issue or anything? Topics that we should emphasize? You can always send me an email with a topic, that'd be fine. That is not serial.
The only thing that I would say is we changed the name of the element, didn't we? That was quite a big thing that we should probably want to know. It used to be called the community character and design, didn't it? And we changed the name, or, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the community design element remained community design element. There was at one point that I included for suggestion as community character and design, but it's not changing. So it is as is. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, surface water element. Okay. The capital plan for the surface water. Natural environment element.
I mean, I
You have-
would, yeah, if
you
nobody
have
else
a
wants.
topic?
Yeah.
What's your topic?
I think we, I think the Scott was something that we suggested would be added and Todd made, and I think it's a good analysis that I think is worth highlighting.
Oh,
Sorry?
you like the. element.
Yes.
This gets a plus on the element. Now, did you want to provide emphasis on that or just for me to make the point?
Yeah, I guess generally we want to be really circumspect this time, don't we? Because of time, but do we think council will have questions for us on these, or are we just generally in terms of presenting? Do we think it's best that we just leave it as one voice coming from the chair, or are we thinking we want multiple voices?
I just introduce them with any points based on the comments that we have that might not be exactly clear in our work, or that something we were concerned about that's missing, but needed more work later on, something like that.
In that case, I think it's because it speaks for itself, so we don't need to double down on how clear it is. They'll
wanna
read it
double
and
down?
clear it, see it's clear, or
Simple
decide it's not.
sentence. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The tech terms. I don't know if we need to, there's nothing other than it's routine. Probably the easiest thing we did on both of them, and critical areas is good. Our environmental folks were all good on that. Okay, routine. Well, we're going to have more comments on the land use and the housing and human service element. I know that. So if anyone comes up with something that they would like to personally speak to, just send me an email. And we have to keep it to 2 minutes. And then when they start asking questions, if you feel that you'd like to succinctly answer it, feel free. Okay. Just remember, however, that if you believe you can't, if you can use the loose term "we discussed" or we felt, or we something like that, is okay to use that kind of term, versus something that the commission, if the commission didn't vote on it or do a head nod on it, then if we did something like that, then you can be more assertive with your response. But I try to be careful speaking for the commission, and that's what we all should be, especially when we're not together and we're not in front of the city council. So, and we're all allowed to have our own personal views. And if there's some personal issue, like now, one time Commissioner Banazinski voted no on a major amendment to one of the elements, and she spoke to that as a minority opinion. And then some of us generally agreed with her, which is okay. That's okay. So I just want you to, what do you think, Mike? You've been there many more years than I have and sat through these things.
Yes, and some of the wounds are still fresh. I think that's good advice. I think it's important to be clear when we're speaking from our own perspective, which may not be the consensus of the group. I think the city council appreciates that. They also appreciate that you do declare when it is. What I have found to be true is that particularly with our group, we're going in, we don't have a minority opinion.
That's right.
We have consensus. So I think we can say that right up front. Maybe that's something you say right up front is, and what I would expect to see is the city council will come back with their own personal questions.
Right.
And that's where the discussion will go.
Or somebody will have put something in their ear.
That's right.
And they're going to just test out the water, which we believe in what we voted for. So they're looking for us to say, to help them. Because they're going to get, there can be some things in here that people could be a little excited about.
You need to be conscious of that. And I've also seen the city council use us as kind of an interest focus group. They look at each one of us as, oh, they represent this part of the constituency out here. They have an opinion. So to the extent that we are together, we said, yes, we've looked at this extensively and we didn't start out with consensus, but at the end, what you see in our report and in this language is a result of all of that work. So I think we can do a lot of upfront sort of, this is what we thought, this is, summary of everything. My experience is that when you stop talking, the questions you get back are totally unrelated to what you thought they were going to be. So it's better off to give them the space to do that.
They're often political questions.
They are political questions that have to be. I mean, that's their role.
That's right.
They stood for election.
And they appointed
there.
us, so they're expecting us to have an opinion, right?
That's right. So I'll just be quiet there. So I think the biggest
Golf
thing.
carts, though, are an exception. We can talk about golf.
Unanimous.
In fact, if you can limit.
Stole my
the golf
words.
carts, it's a much more pleasant experience. But I think generally what I would say is, just to repeat, is for us not to go in with a huge preparation, anticipating what they want. You can't do it. Better to go in reminding ourselves what we went through to get to here, and to be able to explain to them when they ask the question, explain to them how we got to consensus, and that's why.
And that's part of how I will lead into this.
Encourage them to give us questions rather than us try to expository, some sort of analysis out there.
Because that's why I was asking for topics, as you all would know if there's something that's burning at you that we didn't quite finish, or we should come out so that they can. But anyway, I think we've talked about this enough. Any other questions, John? I mean,
It's okay.
I look at you now. I want to just.
I was raising my hand earlier to mention unanimous consensus about golf carts, and then you took the words out of my mouth before I could make the joke. So yeah, I'm ready to move on.
Chris, yes. Okay. So now we did that. That was, that only took us 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, I'd like to not rush the commission, and but given the time, I'd like to make a proposal. So I'm just looking at my docket schedule for kind of what's coming up, and I'm thinking that with the middle housing discussion that we have, we may be able to squeeze in land use element at the next meeting, unless the commission wants to try to race through this quickly. I just don't know how long people are gonna want to stay, so that's just a proposal. We can try to include this on the next, and also I initially put October 1st as a public hearing. I could probably comfortably say that we're not gonna do a hearing on the October 1st. And so that would give you an
On
additional.
land use or both of them?
That would be land use housing.
Oh, both of
So,
them.
Yeah, so that would potentially give us one more extra deliberation meeting, but we would have to potentially have another meeting scheduled.
We'll
So,
never get through housing before. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
speak up, but I looked at my vice chair and we're both going, no, it's not gonna happen, because housing is gonna bog us down.
Yeah.
Land use might be a little easier, quicker, but
Yeah.
still, I just don't know how we're gonna.
so in any case, yeah, that was just my 2 cents. But we can continue.
Does anybody have topics on the land use that they already know they want to talk about? How about that?
Yes, I have a list
Yes,
prepared.
a list?
I do. I figure.
How many items?
Not the policy portions. I have quite a few more items. Not looking at the policy portion, I've got 3.
3 items.
Yeah, and I would say 2 of them are fairly minor.
Anyone else already know that they have items? Okay, and you have, that's 4 or 2 more, or?
I don't have anything on sorry,
No,
I
that's
don't
okay.
have anything on the introduction, but I do have some notes in the policy section, and I would say it's more than a handful. I don't know, 2 handfuls.
More than a handful. You have 2 handfuls.
Yeah, but they aren't necessarily complicated.
Okay. Should we just do it another?
I would ask, how many of them are administrative that we can just
Yeah, how many,
go back to
are
staff?
any of these administrative?
Likely for me,
Are administrative more?
probably.
Would you feel comfortable discussing those with Todd and seeing if he agrees? And then they'll be just dealt with?
Yes, I am comfortable discussing them with Todd.
Okay, thank you. And how is the administrator down there at the Olson seat?
I would say one of them is administrative, and then like Commissioner Banisinski, I've got a handful of
How about-
policy.
Would you feel comfortable talking to our esteemed planner?
Yeah.
And running through those, and maybe
Seeing what needs to come back to the commission.
administrative and maybe can come up with a suggestion words,
Absolutely.
because that goes faster if we have, because we're at that point where we really do need words for amendments unless we have issues that need to be discussed.
Yep.
I have all my words. But are you trying, if we want to get out at 10, then I can't do them. Never mind, I'll just send them to Todd.
Okay. Anyone else want to add? Okay, so maybe with those, there's going to be something else pop up, but you know, that's, if we can, we're feeling, we did 5 public hearings in 15 minutes. There is hope for us. And then we passed them all in the next 15 minutes. And Director Ben is not going to believe it. You're going to have to leave her a message. All right, so can we schedule this at the next, oh,
Is it possible that we make one amendment to the introduction of the land use element?
why not?
All right,
One,
one under the purpose on
What
line,
line?
page L-1. It's the first page, introduction, page or lines 10, arguably 11. It says it provides the basis for housing, transportation, public service. I think that should be services, but that's a minor thing. Utility and capital facility plans. I'm hoping to just add one more comma that says amenities. Just hitting the same drum I've hit before. That's it.
and say amenities?
Yeah, so it would be amended to read, it provides the basis for housing, transportation, public services, amenities, utilities, and capital facility plans. Lines 10 and 11, L-1.
That like a Santa Claus lane or something like that?
Amenities? I mean,
Go for it.
Okay, move. It's been moved that we add amenities somewhere in that string that makes English, the grammar correct. Is there any objections? It's good. Wow, we got one down. Okay, so are we good? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll work with the commissioners that have additional comments, and then we can bring back the land use element.
And if anyone else comes with some, please get with our man there. All right, I want to remind everyone that there are 3 members up. Commissioner Vandeling, our vice chair, will be applying for reappointment. Let me get that. And then we have 2 openings. So September 29th is the deadline. So if you know some people, please talk to them. I'd be glad to talk to anybody that you would like me to. So is there anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none. Good work tonight. Thank you. We could not have done this without your stellar work, Mr. Hall. It was great. Productive night. All right. Meeting adjourned at 9:58. Nope. Yes, 9:58.